This is going to be an exciting match.
Yes, it will. And I think there's going to be a lot that's going to be determined on turn 0. The lead, so crucial. And they are here. Get ready to make some noise. We have Chien-Pao and Rillaboom over on Michael's side versus the Maridon and that Farigiraf. And because of the speed interactions, grassy terrain reigns supreme.
Yes, this actually works really nicely coming out the block here. Yes, you do get the electric terrain on to boost up the electric seed. Very nice for Farigiraf, but then you have the Rillaboom overriding this. This allows the Rillaboom to deal even more damage with something like a Wood Hammer. You can't go for Grassy Glide in this situation because of the Armor Tail on the Farigiraf. However, you also have that Sword of Ruin ability on the field. That's going to boost up the damage you can do. And also, Chien-Pao with that Focus Sash has a little wiggle room. It can always go for a very powerful Isocore Crash into that opposing Maridon and get some damage. This could force Maridon to go for the Electric Terror.
Yeah, and I think we've also seen in the previous set, Maridon, Draco Meteor, Helping Hand boosted with the Specs, does actually threaten a KO potential, or definitely actually on that Rillaboom. The fact that it doesn't have Assault Vest and it is choice banded.
Exactly, it's going to be very vulnerable to the Helping Hand Draco Meteor, as you mentioned, Costa, and it looks like Maridon just double checking. It's dropping its Dragon type and doesn't have to worry about any ice coming its way. It's in prime position to be able to get damage on the board. There's the Helping Hand. Farigiraf is like, I do not need Trick Room right now, but you need a little bit of a boost to get the knockout and get us into that final. Icicle Crash comes through first of all. As you can see, Maridon able to hang on, and here's the Draco.
It does connect, it doesn't get flinch, and it does not miss, and the Rillaboom, one hit KO'd out of game 1. All of a sudden, really amping up the hyper-aggressive approach we've been saying that Matt's composition does have.
And we can talk about the damage all we like, but the superstar there was Farigiraf, preventing any potential priority coming through. Grassy Glide, Sucker Punch, off limits, meaning that the speed of that Rillaboom was always going to be put into question. Yes, Chien-Pao's able to move first, but Maridon can retaliate with that one-hit KO. Michelle down a Pokemon very early doors, but let's not rule him out yet. Now we've got the Zamazenta on the field. Dauntless Shield activator's got the defense boost, which it kind of needs when Sword of Ruin's on the field, but that also allows it to get some extra damage against both the opposing Pokemon.
And it does feel like Michelle sort of had to accept that trade in order to bring the Zamazenta in fresh and fly without any sort of damage and go and risk any sort of reads too, because we could have easily have seen a Volt Switch there if Matt was expecting any sort of hard switch to be able to resist those Draco Meteors. However, like we've mentioned, right now, this Maridon is at -2 of its special attack. It may be sort of inclined to try to switch out in order to not only reset those stats, but it could also get the Electric Train back onto the field.
I think it definitely wants to do that, particularly considering we've had a sneak peek and seen the Iron Hand in the back that's now joining the field. It will be able to get its Quark Drive activated if the Electric Drain comes back into the field. Icicle Crash will find its mark on that opposing Farigiraf. Doesn't do too much damage as Zamazenta follows up with a Body Press. That's more like it, but still not enough to get the KO, as Farigiraf can go for that foul play and critically break the Focus Sash on Chien-Pao.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it's going to be able to resist it, but the lovely thing of seeing foul play now being utilized so much and increasing in usage is the fact that you don't need to put in any sort of investment. You incorporate the attack stat of the target and you chuck it straight back at them in order to deal some really good damage in such a meta that has a lot of high offensive physical sweepers.
You got to remember now as well, Iron Hands has Fake Out on the field, so Matt in a position to really slow down the pace of play, maybe enabling the Farigiraf to get off the field and come back in a bit later on. The Helping Hand, I think, is going to be critical next to that Maridon in order to get that additional damage on the board. Even if it is something like you have to go for the discharge and KO your own Farigiraf, Helping Hand will have that priority, and it could be what will clean out the game. But we're not quite there yet. Whimsicott joins the field, now allowing this kind of hybrid idea of maybe trying to get something like an Encore, shut down the opposing Pokemon, or even get a Tailwind up. You have to bear in mind, though, Encore is not going to be able to go down into the opposing Chien-Pao unless it terrestrializes like it just has. It got rid of its Dark typing, it got rid of its protection against Prankster moves, and now will be more vulnerable to the Encore, but less affected by a Moonblast.
Exactly, and also it is now immune to any sort of fake outs too. It does actually break the Focus Sash of the Whimsicott. Oh, and even though there was a Sash, it does survive because of the double resist situation. Drain Punch is also not able to pick off that Chien-Pao due to that fighting type and normal type immunity.
The trade-off was worth it, just making sure that you've got those immunities, like you've said, Costa, to be able to keep Chien-Pao on the field. Now, you've got to bear in mind Farigiraf is still in the back, but the speed is in your favor. You can go for something like the Icicle Crash here on the Chien-Pao or even the Sacred Sword just to try and get some damage on the board, but you have to watch out for the fact that there is a tailwinding opposing Whimsicott potentially in play.
And I think it's so good because not only do you benefit... Oh, wait. Icicle
misses.
does miss onto the Iron Hands, means that there's no chance to be able to perhaps pick up a double KO. I don't think there would, even with that target. It's more so if you could get the flinch in that scenario, but the Volt Switch does allow the pivot, and now in combination with that Tailwind allows Miraidon so much more room to be able to outspeed the Chien Pao as well as potentially get very big damage on. And I think it sort of allows Matt to even consider a hard switch into the Farigiraf in order to block any sort of cheeky sucker punches.
Yes, that could be a really nice play, and I've got to credit the way the Tailwind interacted there. Iron Hands was still slower than both the Chien Pao and the Zamazenta. If it had been faster and was able to get that Volt Switch off first, because of the double targeting, this Miraidon would not have been able to get in as safely as it has been able to. So fantastic calculations of speed on Matt's side of the field here, because now Miraidon is a Pokemon that will benefit from that Tailwind and will now have the speed advantage over both the opponents on Michiel's side.
And at this point, you just need to be able to guarantee that the Miraidon does get the damage off, and we sort of see Matt really taking that into consideration and does, of course, switch that Farigiraf in. Does not want to risk things, but he does have to take into consideration any potential protects coming out from Michiel's side. Are there going to be reads? It seems like at least the Zamazenta does go for it.
Exactly. We're going to see a little bit of protective play as Miraidon goes for that Electro Drift. That is the option that it has locked in with here and is going to be able to benefit from that electric terrain as the Icicle Crash finds its mark, though. No more Miraidon. Bye-bye.
Wow, and that is such a big and important play there. You're able to get rid of your main sweeper, even if you have the priority block available on the field right now. This is quite crucial because Michiel does still have a lot of gas in the tank, especially with his Zamazenta and Chien Pao being so healthy.
You're right there. There was a fantastic defensive play on Michiel's side, and sometimes a good defense is a good offense, because now as you get the end stages of this game one, there's a lot of offensive pressure coming out from Michiel's side that's been able to be preserved just by that protect. Zamazenta able to switch off the field. This is really nice. We get to see Michiel's fourth and final Pokemon as well join the fray, and it is going to be this Latios. Again, a Pokemon that can apply a lot of great pressure with something like an Icy Wind, just get rid of that Whimsicott, but to be honest, any offensive damage coming through will get the knockouts.
Lovely little read there in anticipation of the encore as the Farigiraf is out as well, leaving Matt down to his final two Pokemon. Even though he does have Fake Out on the field, that Chien Pao is very free to completely ignore it, and at this situation, Michiel being able to have so much resource really pays dividends to how well he was able to approach this, given the fact that he didn't fall victim to any sort of potential read of the Farigiraf switch-ins. He was like, okay, no, I'm going to play clear, I'm going to play true and straight, I'm just going to try to focus down on the Miraidon.
Thing is, if you go for the Fake Out, then the only kind of offensive pressure you have is going to be on that Whimsicott, and all it's really got here is a Moonblast. That's not going to be doing too much to the Zamazenta, and so if it is targeting down into that opposing Chien Pao, yes, it'll get some damage on the board, but I think it's still going to be shy of a KO.
Yeah, just a tiny bit, as a Sacred Sword wanting to guarantee that it does connect 100% accurate. Critically, at this point, definitely does not matter. Whimsicott is out, and the lonesome Iron Hand is on its own. Even though it's in electric terrain, which it quite fancies, it's not likely going to be able to do as much, although we do know that this Pokemon has been an absolute terror in previous formats for a reason, and it is indeed that set, the Assault Fest.
Not every day you see an Ice Punch take out a Chien Pao, but that's where Terrestrialization can come into the fray, and it's nice to just make sure that you're getting that damage down on the board. The Ice Punch, of course, going to be able to apply a lot of pressure to that opposing Latios, but I think in the 2v1 situation, particularly considering that you can go for this Luster Purge and deal so much damage to the Iron Hands, it's just not going to be able to hang on, and Michiel Kelsch will win game one in this top 4 set.
Well done from Michiel. Matt, really trying to put on the pressure initially at the early game stage. Did look like it was going in his favor, but then we had a couple of very small but very nice optimizations in terms of the play style, sort of reading out what Matt's approach is going to be, being able to lock out that Miraidon, at least to the point of saying, okay, I am willing to take the trade of losing my Rillaboom as long as you have the -2 and special attack after the Draco Meteor, which then will in turn force you to switch out and lose that primal position of incredible offense.
You make a great observation there, Costa, because that Draco Meteor, although it's such an epic moment, taking down the Rillaboom, it's detrimental throughout the rest of the set. It's not just about winning a turn, you got to win the match. And Miraidon then is kind of pinned in, particularly with the choice specs, it cannot change its moves. It has to go for Draco Meteor, so it's going to be doing less and less damage as you keep using that move. That forces you to switch out, which provides the perfect opportunity for your opponent to capitalize. And I think that's really where this set is going. It's all about Miraidon. When it's on form, it's all about Matt. When it's maybe in a bit of a difficult spot, that's where Michael can counteract it. And I think, particularly in this match, losing the Miraidon in that turn by going into the Protect and the Icicle Crash KOing it just meant that there was really nothing that Matt could do to stop Michael at that point.
Yeah, and really, right now, Matt does need to try to consider, is Miraidon the best approach? Is there any sort of room where I could bring perhaps Ursaluna or Trick Room as well? Because you do want to try to capitalize off of having that immediate speed control, and given that you've got this team composition, you can go either way. You've got those options, that flexibility, based off of the progress of the current set.
That's not a bad shout, actually. Ursaluna definitely has some leg room in this match, particularly considering if Chien-Pao does want to even go into the Ghost type with Mind's Eye, you're still going to be able to hit it with your normal type attacks. And if you're in that Trick Room environment, you might be able to control the pace of the game a little bit more. Farigiraf and Iron Hands coming through now. I've seen this combination before when Trick Room comes through. Fake out the annoying Pokemon, set up your Trick Room. And it doesn't matter if you actually lose one of the Pokemon in that turn necessarily, because it's the free switch to possibly that Blood Moon Ursaluna in the back.
Yeah, it's a good old classic of being able to guarantee that Trick Room. And from Michael's side, does have the option of going for the Ghost Terror, but I don't see there being a reason to do so, as there's actually no fake out. Maybe a read upon another read. Body press and Icicle Crash combination actually picks up the KO and completely halters the Trick Room option.
Iron Hands, what are you doing? You needed to help out your partner there. Yes, the Volt Switch is lovely. You can now pivot and bring a Pokemon in from the back, but that Farigiraf is gone, and you can see the Ursaluna waiting in the rings, but it doesn't want to come out anymore. It's like, no, coach, do not put me on the field. Instead, Miraidon can join and say, okay, plan B, put me in, I'm ready.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the idea that Matt did have a really good approach to this, being able to think, okay, I want to be able to have one or two, if not both, sweepers on either side of the spectrum in terms of the speed control aspect of it. Trick Room sweeper being, of course, the Ursaluna. The faster end, once the Trick Room does expire, you've got that Miraidon to be able to sort of form a speed control sandwich onto Michael to force him out. But the fact that he lost the Farigiraf is so crucial to his game plan. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to force any offensive pressure he needs to right back onto Michael with that.
Well, let's look at the plan B. Iron Hands back on the field, can now go for that fake out and help Miraidon out. Miraidon has the option, and I'm wondering if you do go with it. You could always try and go for some big spread damage, something like the Discharge, because you've got an Iron Hands with an Assault Vest next to you. It's going to be able to take that hit and just get double damage on the field. But Michael playing it safe here, being like, right, fake out is probably coming out this time, and there it is. So now there is the double protect. So I do get what Matt was trying to do in that previous turn, because if you do go for the fake out, then I think if you're Michael, you might just have to accept, hey, Trick Room's going up. But Michael not reading into it, just being able to go straight for that double. So a beautiful play. Iron Hands now has burnt that fake out. So what can it do in this next turn?
Yeah, and that's sort of the big question right now, being able to, from Michael's side, play very hyper-aggressive that turn one and fall back to a more defensive approach in turn two really goes to show that Michael knows when to throttle the gas and the pedal, and has done it exceptionally well. Matt wanted to try to, well, he did actually expect a more passive turn one, hence why there was no fake out, and he wanted to try to get that easy pivot into the Zamazenta.
Chien-Pao leaving the field, going to be bringing the Rillaboom into the fray, and I like this. You're bringing the Grassy Terrain onto the field, going to negate some of the pressure that the electric type attacks are going to get from the electric terrain, as well as bringing your own fake out potentially onto the field. The Quark Drive is also gone now. The Iron Hands does not get that additional boost, but a Pokemon will be getting a change of type as Miraidon drops its Dragon type, becomes a pure electric, and applies the pressure.
And that's sort of the main aspect of this strategy. You want to be able to completely capitalize off of, but we do have Michael thinking a bit the same over on his side of the field, actually opting to go for that Grass Terror in order to resist any electric type moves. So this introduces a scenario where if Matt would have been able to lock into Draco Meteor, he would have been able to circumvent that situation, but he has not, as the Electro Drift will be targeting down onto it, and without terrain, it's not going to be able to deal as much as it would have liked.
Yeah, Zamazenta able to take that really well. And the other thing I love is this body press coming through. Some big damage on the board. Ice Punch, yeah, it goes into Zamazenta, but that defense is playing in control. The Rillaboom is in such a great position now as well. The grassy terrain's on the field, and guess what? Farigiraf is already back in its Pokeball. You can go for all the priority that you want. A Grassy Glide might even be able to do some good damage to this Miraidon. You've got to remember, it is a choice band that is going to hit hard.
Oh, very, very hard. And I think at this point, maybe Matt was trying to lean on RNG to an extent. Maybe get a cheeky little freeze if you can to slow down this overwhelming momentum that Michelle has available on their side of the field. Because even though Miraidon is very fast and very offensive in terms of damage output, it's limited to being locked into one slot at all times. Ursaluna seems to be that immediate adaptation, as it's going to be taking a Grassy Glide, just barely surviving though.
Able to hang on. The Heavy Slam follow-up, however, will be able to get the knockout. But remember, it's a choice band Rillaboom. It's locked into Grassy Glide going forward. And I like the switch by Matt. The Miraidon you want to keep. I think now that you know there's no Trick Room, the Ursaluna was a bit more expendable. And this is also a brilliant play. Iron Hands going for the Volt Switch. Yes, you're down to your last two remaining Pokemon, so Iron Hands will have to rejoin the field. But at least now it has that fake out potential. You know that the opposing Rillaboom is choice band. You can go for the fake out. It cannot protect.
But this may be a situation where, at least with the current trend of playstyle Michelle has been deploying, most likely going to be wanting to switch that Rillaboom out, get that Protect going in order to allow for a rejigging of the terrain, bring the Grassy back onto the field, and slow down the momentum from Matt's side.
You're right, the Grassy Terrain Wars and the Electric Terrain Wars are really in fruition at the moment. Both these trainers trying to get the switch, but there is no more flexibility for Miraidon in this case. Miraidon has to decide which move it wants to lock into. And Iron Hands, yes, it can go for a fake out here, but Michelle can easily make an adaptation. There are 4 Pokemon on his side of the field, and there we see it. The Rillaboom leaving the field. When it comes back, there's that Grassy Terrain once again.
As we're actually going to see the Chien-Pao making its way back onto the field, bringing along its ruinous sword, Protect from the Zamazenta. Like we mentioned, just a bit of a defensive re-adaptation of the board state here. Fake out does target down the Chien-Pao, and Electro Drift was really hoping to try to catch out that Zamazenta in electric terrain. Honestly, at that range, could well have actually picked up the KO.
I mean, the thing is as well for this Chien-Pao, you don't really need it anymore, so you don't worry if it goes down, but it has the potential now to go for a cheeky Sucker Punch into the Miraidon. Choice Specs locked in, you know that you're able to get that connecting, and that could just try and remove that Pokemon from the field before you need to do it with Grassy Glide. There we go, Miraidon down. Now it's just Iron Hands against Michael Kelsch, who is looking so strong in this tournament.
Yeah, and it's looking like he may go all the way. Body press into that Iron Hands. Not quite enough to pick up a KO just yet, but in combination with the subsequent turn, surely at this point will be able to lock his way through into the finals.
Exactly, you can go for all the drain punches you want, get all the recovery on the field, but there's just too many Pokemon able to deal a lot of damage out there on the field, particularly with Sword of Ruin there, helping out the Zamazenta to deal an additional hit.
Yeah, and at this point, I think we do really need to give credit to how well Michelle has been able to play this board state and have the advantage at every other turn around the corner. And there it is! Michelle's going to be able to go ahead, wrap this one up, be able to catapult his way straight through into the finals.
I'm calling it now. He plays like that in finals. This is Michelle's tournament.
For sure.